Do you ever feel like you're ready to react the moment you're with your child, even if you've had some time to yourself that day? Or maybe you find yourself easily irritated and antsy during the bedtime routine, just desperate for the day to be over. And even the smallest demand from your child feels like too much? You're not alone. What if I told you that your nervous system may have already been mounting a stress response long before that parenting moment ever happened? In today's episode, we're going to talk about 6 common nervous system survival patterns that keep so many mothers living in survival mode without even realizing it. So, patterns like overdoing, rushing, perfectionism, self criticism that leave you depleted, reactive, and feeling like you're failing. We'll explore how these patterns form and how they impact your parenting and what you can start doing today to gently shift them, not by doing more, but by connecting back to your body, your rhythm, and your self-worth. So let's begin. I had a couple of hours of time to myself today. At first, it felt like a gift. Time to catch up, time to breathe. But almost immediately, I could feel my system revving up. All I could think about was my to-do list. I had so much I wanted to get done before I spent the rest of the day with my son. I felt this pressure to maximize every minute, so I stacked my schedule, rushed from task to task, and avoided slowing down. About halfway through my list, I could feel my energy start to dwindle. But nope, I didn't stop. I pushed through. I told myself this is my only chance to get this stuff done. And when I got to the end of that list, or most of it, I felt a hit of accomplishment. I felt like I was succeeding at life. That feeling, it was a rare one because I rarely feel that way when I'm with my son, who is unpredictable and hard to control. But this I could control, and it felt good. Then I re-entered life with my son that day, still stuck in that rushing energy. He felt it right away. He started to escalate. I felt irritated, agitated. I had just pushed through the whole afternoon, and now I wanted things to go smoothly with him. I wanted us to enjoy this time together, but I was tired and teetering on dysregulation. We both eventually calmed. We connected, but I found my mind racing again, thinking about the things I hadn't finished, the emails I needed to respond to, the work deliverable that I forgot about, all the next things to do on my list. My mind was wondering when I'd get the chance to do them. Then I was late making dinner. And if I'm late making dinner, then bedtime gets pushed. And if bedtime gets pushed, then my son likes to push it even more. So I felt a surge of fear, worrying about what would happen tonight, already bracing for a hard night. So I started to rush through making dinner like it was a competition against time. My son came into the kitchen and he wanted me to do something for him. And he sensed my rushing energy right away. And then he sensed my annoyance and he immediately activated. And so I had to drop everything that I was doing and focus on him. After my son's activation, I felt I needed a break just to come down a little and recharge. But dinner was even later now, and I was worried if his blood sugar got too low, we would be in for a rough night, so I pushed through again. We got through dinner, although at a slow pace, and after dinner, I was really tired. But there were dishes to be done. I thought about leaving them until tomorrow, and then I heard this thought, oh, just get it done now. I don't like a dirty, messy kitchen. Then night came, and my son didn't want to sleep. He dug his heels in and insisted that I stay up. Well, guess what? I snapped. I lost my cool because I was overtired, overwhelmed, and my nervous system just couldn't push anymore. Then what always comes after this is the critical self-talk. Why couldn't I have stayed calmer? Why can't I do it all, do everything and stay calm? So what happened here? What happened was this. I spent the entire day stuck in a set of nervous system survival patterns, patterns that on the outside looked like being productive, responsible, or or even doing necessary things, right? I mean, like we have to get stuff done, and we often don't have enough time to get stuff done because we spent so much of our time co-regulating our high needs kids. But underneath what was going on, there was a stress response. And these stress responses were ways I had learned long ago to stay safe and be lovable and feel in control and feel successful. And these patterns didn't just exhaust me, they left me with no capacity to meet my child in his dysregulation. I had already used up everything my system had to give. And I see this so often in mothers I work with and in myself. We think we're just being efficient or responsible or even caring, but we're actually caught in patterns of overdoing, overthinking, and overriding our needs. And these patterns come at a cost. They prime us to react with our kids. So let me walk you through the 6 most common survival patterns that do this and how they might show up in your everyday life. The first survival pattern is constantly doing. And this looks like always cleaning, organizing, or tidying something, or filling every spare moment with something productive, or only allowing rest after everything is done. And guess what? It's never done. So the hidden belief underneath this is I'm not worthy or good enough unless I'm productive. This is a sympathetic survival response, the part of your nervous system that stays in motion because slowing down feels unsafe. And for many of us, rest was never modeled or allowed growing up. And then I do want to mention that there is this real reality of our situations too, that there is a lot of stuff to get done. And certain things just need to get done daily, right? So I'm not trying to bypass any of that reality. I recognize that there is the reality that there is always something to do, especially if we spend most of our time helping and co-regulating our child. And, there truly is stuff to get done. And when you have some space and time, you want to get that stuff done. So this is a truth, okay? And there is also the truth that there's a pattern here as well, right? And that the pattern that is there that comes from a survival-based response, usually from your childhood, is mounting more stress than is needed today. Okay. And there's a survival drive behind it. So we can notice and allow that both truths may be involved here. So the second pattern is pushing through. And this shows up as forcing yourself to keep going even when your body is saying stop, or revving yourself up to get through the day, or saying yes to others when you need to say no. The beliefs underneath this pattern can be, it's not safe to allow my instincts or needs, or it's not safe to say no to others, or it's not safe to do nothing and rest. That's lazy. That's not good enough. You may have learned that rest wasn't acceptable or that your needs came last. And we often learn these kinds of things in childhood, which, how our caregivers mirrored things to us. This pattern of override is one of the most common paths to burnout, and it usually starts in childhood, as I mentioned, but it gets exacerbated through parenting our high needs kids because of the level of demands there is on our nervous system to both meet their needs and still be able to do the daily tasks of living. So I talk about this pattern a lot in my podcast about why you can't relax. So you can listen to episode 8 or read the blog on my website to more deeply understand why it's so hard to allow yourself to relax and rest and why you're always pushing through. Okay. Then number three, the third pattern is rushing. This is such a common one, and I hear this from so many moms. So this can look like frantically getting kids out the door for school, multitasking dinner, laundry, and bedtime routines with urgency. So feeling like you have to rush through everything just to get it done, feeling like you're always running behind or letting someone down. Okay, so the beliefs that drive this pattern is if I'm late or don't meet expectations, I'll be judged, rejected, or seen as lazy. Or if I'm not on time or on schedule, then I'm failing or some catastrophe will happen, like in my case with bedtime and why I had to rush, through dinner because I was worried about bedtime. So this pattern is often wired in by early environments that equated worth and timeliness, equated worth with timeliness or obedience. Okay, so it's a fear-based pattern masquerading as responsibility. And then the fourth pattern is perfectionism. So this shows up as needing everything to be just right before you can relax, or being uncomfortable when your parenting, home, or appearance feels off, or trying to control your child's behavior so that things feel predictable and you feel like you're being a good parent. So the root belief here in this perfectionism pattern is I need to be perfect to be lovable, accepted, safe, and successful. Okay. And perfectionism is a survival strategy. When mistakes, when it wasn't safe to make mistakes growing up, or we were compared to others, or we compared ourselves to others who seemed to be able to do it all or were better than us, then our nervous systems learn that being flawless might help us avoid criticism or rejection and feel more successful and good enough in life. Okay, and then number 5 is self-criticism. This pattern sounds like, I'm doing it all wrong. I should have handled that better. Why can't I just be more patient? So the underlying belief is if I'm hard on myself, I'll improve. I'm not good enough as I am. Okay, so self-criticism is so common. Every mom I work with has a hard time with this one. It's so part of our culture to instill in us that if we are hard on ourselves, then we will do better. Okay, but here's the truth. Shame doesn't help us to grow. Compassion does. And self-criticism is trying to protect us so we don't feel the shame. It's a way our system tries to fix us so we won't be hurt again. And this takes a lot of energy and can be very depleting on the nervous system. But compassion nurtures the nervous system and it fuels energy. Self-criticism depletes it and keeps the nervous system stuck in survival mode. Okay, and survival pattern number 6 is worrying and ruminating. This is a huge one for all of us, okay? So this pattern includes replaying things that went wrong. I do this all the time. Prepping for every worst case scenario. My brain does this all the time too. Constantly thinking ahead. What if bedtime is awful? What if he melts down in public? So always worrying about what's going to come next and then trying to, control. The controlling patterns come in around this when you're worrying. So the belief underneath this worrying and rumination can be, I'm only safe if I stay focused on the past or future. The present isn't safe. So it's not safe to be here right now, allowing what is. It feels too unsafe. So I have to worry about the future and figure out how to prevent the future. Okay. So this hypervigilance in your nervous system is a way of protecting you. Okay. But it robs you of peace and presence, right? Keeps you from the present where regulation happens. And the only way we can truly regulate our kids is if we are in the present moment. So here is the nervous system reality, right? There is a cost to these nervous system patterns. So these survival patterns aren't just mental habits, they are physiological states that are rooted in early life experiences of relational and attachment stress with our caregivers. Okay. And when you live inside of these all day, your body is constantly in sympathetic dominance, which is the fight flight response. And even if you're not visibly agitated, your body is pumping stress hormones and running in overdrive. Okay. And much of the time, what's happening is we're doing something that is called overshooting and building stress load. Because here's what's happening, we're so tired and we need to push and mount more sympathetic energy in order to get things done, right? So we need sympathetic energy to get things done. But because we're so tired, we often then rev up and push. And and oftentimes what happens is we overshoot. We mount more sympathetic energy than we actually need and that we actually use. Meaning that there's all this excess energy and stress hormones that we don't end up using and that gets trapped in our system, leaving us more agitated afterwards. And the longer you stay in these patterns, overdriving the sympathetic system and not giving your nervous system its natural breaks to come back to rest and repair, the closer you get to your threshold, okay, the point where your system can't take anymore. And that's why a single demand from your child, like a tantrum, a refusal, a messy mistake, can send you into a sympathetic reactive snap, right? Where you go into irritation or yelling or control or even rage. Or it could send you into shutdown and collapse, where you're feeling more numb and fatigued and more this emotional withdrawal and this feeling like, I just can't. Because your body has been fighting for survival all day. And then you bring all of that now into this moment with your child. And then your child's behavior, it's really just the final straw. So this is why it's so many of us can often feel like we're constantly failing or too reactive or not calm enough with our kids. It's not because we're broken, it's because we are already depleted before the moment of challenge even begins. And these patterns, when you're living in them daily, when we're living in them daily, they really leave us without the nervous system fuel we need for co-regulation, connection, and presence with our kids. And the thing is that most parents who come to me wanting to regulate and be calmer in the face of their child's challenges believe that it's all about the intense moments with their child and that that's just the work that they need to do, like figuring out why their child is triggering them and then healing that. And yes, that is a big part of the work. But if you want to be more regulated with your kids in life, it's also super important to notice these other survival and patterns that you're engaging in all day long, right? That may keep your nervous system revving and depleted at the same time and ready to react with your child then. Okay, so how do we heal these patterns? The healing path begins not with control or discipline, but with awareness. Always start with awareness first. Okay, start by noticing, which of these patterns do I find myself doing on a regular basis? So notice how you feel the pattern show up in your body first. Okay, so just notice that sympathetic activation in your body and what it feels like. Notice the tensing of the muscles, notice the activation of your heart rate going up, notice the drive, the urgency and the drive feeling, and be with that activation for a moment so that you can get to know it. Okay. Oh yeah, I'm in sympathetic right now, driving myself to do all this. Okay. Then the next step is you acknowledge, right, that this is the survival pattern trying to keep you safe in some way. So that's really important. Allow yourself to be with it and acknowledge it. Then interrupt that pattern with a cue of safety. Okay, perhaps ask, what does my nervous system need to feel just a little bit safer? So perhaps it's coming back into the present by orienting to the room and noticing a glimmer or something comforting, right? Something that's giving your body a cue of safety. Perhaps even feeling the ground under your feet or your bum in the chair, feeling that support of the ground. Or even in your mind, thinking of a place that brings you comfort, like a place in nature where you feel calm and relaxed. Okay, so allow yourself to feel that and give yourself a cue of safety in your body. Or perhaps it's also using some calming words with yourself, like it's okay to rest, or I'm allowed to slow down. Putting a hand on your chest or your belly, just bringing yourself some comfort and a cue of safety. So these are all cues of safety that you can bring to your body so that you can come back to you. Okay. And remember that when we work with the body first, that's the 80% pathway. Working with the mind alone is the 20% pathway going down, but working with the body is the 80% pathway can regulate a lot faster. So then you want to notice as you're regulating, notice the body and the muscles softening a little bit, and then ride that wave to even more softening and relaxing, and let yourself come down from that stress response that you're in. So then once you do that, you want to try this, okay? And try to engage in your task that you're doing, not from pressure or perfection, but from presence, okay? Allow your worth to be unhooked from your output. This is the biggest thing. I think most of us, we work on this. I've been working on this for so long. Like, allow your worth to be unhooked from your output. You are still worthy, even if you don't get a lot of stuff done. Okay. And then take small breaks, listen to your nervous system, follow your rhythms, let your body recover. It can be just micro moments of breaks and rest. And when you give yourself that, you empower yourself that you have choice to change these patterns. So even one moment of doing this begins to rewire your nervous system and build that pathway, that neural pathway back to safety and regulation, which is the ventral vagal system. And then many moments of doing this helps build a nervous system that is grounded in more safety and regulation. Okay, you have a lot more choice to choose this path if you do little moments often. Okay, so always remember that you are not your patterns. You are the awareness behind your survival patterns. And it's important to understand that being a regulated parent starts long before your child even escalates. It starts in the moment you choose not to override your fatigue if you can, realistically. Sometimes we have to push through, but if you can you choose to not override your fatigue? And it starts when you pause instead of rush, when you show yourself kindness instead of criticism, when you give yourself permission to rest, even if the list isn't done. And even give yourself permission to feel good enough and successful, even if nothing gets done. Can you allow yourself that gift? Okay. You are the parent of a hypersensitive, high needs child who has more on her plate than the average parent. So try not to compare yourself to others or even the old you pre-kids who could get a lot done before. Okay, we often do that. Like, why can't I get done now what I did before? Okay, that's just a recipe for feeling like a failure. Now, these survival patterns, they'll always want you to do more and they'll always want you to be more. And these survival patterns were wise at one point. They helped you feel safe, lovable, belonging, successful. They protected you in life. But now they're keeping you from the version of yourself that you're trying to become, the version of you that is grounded, present, compassionate, and able to meet your child with the love they need, not because you're perfect, but because you're regulated. So if this episode resonated with you, please do write to me and let me know. I love hearing your feedback. And please subscribe to my channel and share this with another parent who may need it too. Thank you.